Hello dear students. So today we are going to see requirement engineering, and we are going to see one very important phase, that is software requirement specification. It is also termed as SRS document. I am Dr. Alifia Jahagirdar, Assistant Professor of Abida Inamdar Senior College. If you like my videos, do press the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now we need to understand and specify the requirements. A problem of scale is, for small scale, understand and specifying requirement is very easy, but when the scale grows high it becomes very difficult and probably the hardest and most problematic and error prone thing. The requirement task is, first it should understand the input, that is what is there in the mind of user. Okay, output, you have to be very precise in statement of what future system will do. Okay, so here what is the challenge? Identifying and specifying the requirements, first of all, necessarily involves people interaction, and it cannot be automated. You cannot automate identifying and specifying the requirements. You have to work with the people. You have to have the interaction with the people, that is interview, questionnaires, surveys, and so on. So what is a requirement? A condition or a capability that must be possessed by a system, that was stated by IEEE. What is the work product of the requirement phase? A software requirement specification document is called as work product of the requirement phase. Work product of the requirement phase, that means at the end of your requirement phase, what is going to be your thing, that is called as SRS document. So what is an SRS document? It is a complete specification of what the proposed system should do. What your system should do is specified in your SRS. Requirement understanding is hard. Visualizing a future system is difficult. Capability of future system is not clear, hence needs not clear. Requirements changes with time. Essential to do proper analysis and specification of requirement is a must. Purpose of the SRS document, why we want SRS document? First of all, it will establish an agreement between the user and the supplier. User needs to have to be satisfied, but user may not understand the software. Developers will develop the system but may not know about the problem domain. So there has to be a mutual agreement at the time of SRS. Like for example, a client says, I want a blue color website. So the programmer is going to give blue color website. So there is an agreement signed between them and an acknowledgement is written. So every time an acknowledgement is taken from the user in a documented format. SRS is again a medium of a bridge which is going to bridge the communication gap, and it will specify user needs in both in a manner where both can understand. Even a programmer can understand and even a user can understand. What is the need? First of all, it is going to help user to understand his needs. Okay, user do not always know their needs, so it must analyze and understand the potentials. The requirement process will help them to clarify the needs. SRS is going to provide reference for validation of the final product, because in SRS what you write is going to get validated at your final product. So you have to understand what is expected, and validation is software satisfies the SRS. It is going to check each and every word from SRS. High quality SRS is needed for high quality software. Requirement errors get manifested in final software and you have to satisfy the quality objectives. So you are going to use high quality SRS. Requirement defects cause later problems. Sometimes there is a defect which is caused at the time of requirement, and sometimes we don't understand the user's requirement, and so that we do not give them the final product what is needed. So 25% of all defects in one study and 50% of all defects found after the user testing. So defects often found in previously approved SRS is there. Requirement specification, the final output requirement task is your SRS. Why are DFTs and OO model, that is object oriented models, are not SRS? First of all, SRS will focus on external behavior while modeling focuses on problem structure. UI etc. is not model but have to be in SRS. Error handling constraints is also needed in SRS. Transition from analysis to specification is not straightforward. Knowledge about the system acquired in analysis is used in specification. Whatever knowledge I get in analysis phase, I'm going to use it at the time of specification, at the time of drafting. Characteristics, first of all, correct. The SRS has to be correct, it has to be complete, it has to be unambiguous, it has to be consistent, that if I try to do SRS after a month also it should give me the same answer. Verifiable, you have to verify your SRS. Traceable, you can trace your SRS. Modifiable, and rank for importance and its stability. Let's see in details. Correctness, each requirement accurately represents some desired features in the final system, that is first thing. Completeness, all desired features, characteristics specified should be completed. It is hardest to satisfy, but completeness and correctness strongly relate each other. Unambiguous, each requirement has exactly one meaning. Without this, errors will creep in. Important, as natural languages often use. Verifiability, there must exist a cost-effective way of checking if the software satisfies the requirement. Consistent, two requirements don't contradict each other. Traceable, there is an origin of the requirement and the requirement related to software elements can be determined. Rank for importance or stability is need for prioritizing in construction, and it's going to reduce the risk due to change in requirements. Components of SRS, what an SRS contain, clarifying this will ensure completeness. An SRS must specify requirements on functionality, performance, design constraint and external interfaces. Functional requirement, it is the heart of SRS document. This forms the bulk of specifications. It specifies all the functionalities that the system should provide or support, output for the given input and relationship between them, all the operations the system is to do, and it is going to specify behavior for invalid inputs too, that is called as financial requirement. Performance requirement, here the performance is judged of a software. There is a constraint on the software system, generally on response time. Throughput time is expected, that is called as dynamic, and at the time of static, capacity requirement is measured. So it is a measurable term, that is verifiability. Like example, response time should be XX 90% of the time. Next is design constraints. Constraints are nothing but conditions, factors in the client environment that restrict the choices. Some restrictions are standard compliance and compatibility with other systems. You have to check the compatibility with the other system. Hardware limitation, reliability, fault tolerance, backup requirement and security. Specification language should support desired characteristic of SRS. It should not be ambiguous and it should be precise. Natural languages mostly used with some structure for the document, and formal languages are used for special features or highly critical systems. Okay. Structure of SRS, specific requirement, that is called as external interfaces, functional requirement, performance and design. Acceptable criteria is it is desirable to specify this upfront. This standardization of this SRS was done by IEEE. Summary, the requirement has three major subphases: analysis, specification and validation. Analysis for problem understanding and modeling, methods used for SAD, OA and prototyping. Key properties of SRS is correctness, completeness, consistency, traceability, unambiguousness. And specification must contain functionalities such as performance, interfaces and design constraint. Mostly natural languages are used, that is validation through reviews. Thank you so much for listening my lecture. Meet you all again.